Lainey is like a sister to me. What's with the attitude now?
I'm just giving you space. She doesn't look well. Maybe you should take her to the hospital?
Lucille, you dressed like this on purpose to run into me, didn't you? You want me to feel sorry for you, right? All right, I give up. I admit I have an over you, okay? $15,000 a month. Come back with me. Why aren't you jealous anymore?
Isn't that what you've always wanted?
After getting back together with Clifford Burnett, I realized I didn't love him anymore, not even after secretly giving him a child. One evening, his childhood sweetheart showed up looking for him. I quietly grabbed my purse and headed for the door, giving them privacy. Clifford's expression darkened immediately. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, I'm giving you space. After all, everyone knew Melanie would always come first. 5 years ago, I loved Clifford, fought for him, cried for him, destroyed myself for him. In the end, I lost my family and nearly lost my life. That was a lesson I learned the hard way. Around midnight, Clifford stumbled home drunk. He yanked me out of bed. Lucille, why aren't you jealous anymore? I stared at him confused. Isn't that what you've always wanted? Meeting Clifford again was completely unexpected. The amusement park was crowded with adults and children. I ran a cotton candy stand here. Clifford brought Melanie to relive their childhood memories. Melanie was perfectly groomed from head to toe. She stood in stark contrast to me, who was soaked in sweat. Clifford stood in front of my stall and didn't speak for a long time. His charming eyes, which always seemed affectionate even when he wasn't trying, were fixed intently on me. After a long moment, he said in a hoarse voice, "Lucille, you dressed like this on purpose to run into me, didn't you? You want me to feel sorry for you, right?" I was speechless. I'd been running this stall for 2 years. How the hell was I supposed to know he'd show up? He closed his eyes as if in pain. All right, I give up. I admit I haven't gotten over you, okay? $15,000 a month. Come back with me. I silently put down the wooden stick I was holding. $15,000 could save my daughter Cecily Wyatt's life. Ignoring Melanie's murderous glare, I followed Clifford back to the Burnett's mansion, the place where I had lived for 3 years. Clifford behaved like a man who had recovered his most valuable possession, and he treated me with unusual tenderness. One day, Clifford came home much earlier than usual and said he had prepared a grand surprise for me. Lizzie Harlow, the housekeeper, had also hinted more than once that he was going to propose to me. 5 years ago, I would have been too excited to sleep, but now I felt nothing but indifference. That evening, in the carefully decorated exhibition hall, I put on a convincing show of surprise. Before I could even think about what to do next, Melanie showed up, looking pale and unwell. Clifford pulled her into his arms protectively, his face filled with concern. I picked up my bag and left. Lainey is like a sister to me. What's with the attitude now? He complained. I just smiled when he accused me of being unreasonable. You misunderstood. I'm just giving you space. She doesn't look well. Maybe you should take her to the hospital? Comfort her properly tonight. There's no need to rush back. When I got home, I thoughtfully had a hotel room booked for them. I even had the room key sent over. After all, it was late at night. It wouldn't be safe for a young woman to go home alone. I took a hot shower and drifted off to sleep in the dark. A loud clap of thunder jolted me awake in the middle of the night. Frightened, I scrambled out of bed and fetched a basin to place under the leak. It took me a moment to remember that I no longer lived in that rundown neighborhood where every roof leaked. I took a sip of water to soothe my dry throat. My mind drifted back to the past. Clifford and I went to the same schools. We attended high school and college together, then went abroad for graduate studies and co-founded a company. When we returned, our parents met and were satisfied with the two of us as a couple. We got engaged without any fuss. Clifford told me I didn't need to work so hard. Making money was a man's job. All I had to do was stay pretty and enjoy my life. His sweet words left me over the moon, so I sold the company. Clifford joined the Burnett Group, and I spent my days shopping, waiting for him to come home, and planning our wedding. For 2 years, we were deeply in love and inseparable, until Melanie came back to the country. The Dunlap and Burnett families had been close for generations. Melanie had been receiving medical treatment abroad since childhood due to her poor health. For some reason, she insisted on coming back this time. She had few friends and looked up to Clifford as an older brother. Our dates, which used to be just the two of us, gradually turned into outings for three. Clifford doted on her because of her fragile health. He always put her feelings first. Even our scheduled wedding date got pushed back when Melanie was suddenly admitted to the hospital. Melanie refused to receive treatment, and she would listen only to Clifford. She wouldn't eat unless Clifford fed her. She couldn't sleep unless he stayed by her side. My life with Clifford was so full of her presence, and it was completely impossible to avoid her. Everyone told me to be understanding of her. Melanie was sickly and couldn't handle any stress. I kept telling myself that if Clifford saw her as a sister, then she was my sister too. She was fragile, so I shouldn't make a big deal out of anything. I took on the role of a future sister-in-law and brought her homemade soups and meals every day while she was in the hospital. I shuttled back and forth between the house and the hospital nonstop. Then came the night of the torrential downpour. Clifford told me not to bring the soup because he was afraid I'd catch a cold. But I looked at the pot of soup I'd already finished making and decided to bring it over anyway. That same night, amid the lightning and thunder, I walked in on them, tangled together in the hospital room. I burst through the door in a rage and slapped Melanie across the face. In return, Clifford slapped and warned me. "Lucille, are you out of your mind?" Clifford was shirtless and he pulled Melanie, who was also half-dressed, behind him protectively. His eyes were filled with nothing but disgust for me. "It's not what you think." Lainey's scared of thunder. I was just comforting her. I gave a bitter laugh. A half-naked man and woman alone in a room? I didn't know that's how people comfort each other these days. Clifford's face hardened. "Enough. You know Lainey can't handle stress. Go home now and we'll talk about this later." I never got that explanation from Clifford. Instead, I faced a joint retaliation from the Dunlap and Burnett families. They called me a jealous shrew who couldn't tolerate anyone else, not even Clifford's so-called sister. The Dunlap family, in particular, held a grudge over that slap and launched a devastating attack on my family's businesses. When my parents' company was on the brink of collapse, I went to see Clifford. I apologized and begged for mercy. I said everything was my fault, that I was petty and narrow-minded, that I was a bad person who saw the worst in everyone, that I was the villain here. I told him I'd do anything if he just saved the Wyatt family. Clifford turned his head away. "You shouldn't be apologizing to me." Melanie was helped out of the room, and Clifford pulled her into his arms, as if he were protecting a priceless treasure. Melanie gasped for breath between every few words. "Lucy, I always thought of you as my sister-in-law. I never thought you'd." She got so worked up that she started coughing violently. Clifford rubbed her back gently to help her breathe, then turned his cold gaze on me. "Apologize to Lainey." "Now." I gritted my teeth, bowed my head, and bent over in front of everyone. "I'm sorry. It was my fault." Melanie buried her face in Clifford's chest and didn't respond. Clifford frowned at me, clearly unsatisfied. "Lucille, show some sincerity." I was sincere enough. What more did he want? I dropped to my knees in front of them and banged my head 3 times on the floor. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please spare the Wyatt family." But the Wyatt family's businesses still went bankrupt. Dad was driven to jump off a building, and Mom couldn't handle the grief and died soon after. Overnight, the Wyatt family was destroyed. I was left all alone, drowning in a mountain of debt. The hallway light flicked on all of a sudden. Footsteps grew louder. I lay back down in bed, pulled the covers over my face, and pretended to be asleep. Then a cold hand brushed against my forehead. I flinched violently and scrambled backwards, putting as much distance between us as possible. I stretched and opened my eyes, acting as if I'd just woken up. Silence hung heavy in the dark. Our eyes met, and I said flatly, "Why are you back?" Clifford's face darkened instantly. "This is my house. Where else would I go?" I yawned. "All right, then go to bed already." I lay back down, but he yanked me up by the arm. Clifford stared at me, as if he were trying to read something in my face. Lucille, don't you have anything to ask me? I looked confused. Ask about what? Clifford squeezed my hand so hard that I thought he'd break my bones. His voice had a faint, almost imperceptible tremor. Aren't you jealous? If you just ask me, I can explain everything. I cut him off impatiently. Why would I be jealous? Lainey's health is obviously more important. Stop being ridiculous. I'm exhausted. Explain? Did he really expect me to believe that they were naked together in bed but didn't have sex? Clifford stared at me with an unreadable expression. The next second, he pulled me into a crushing hug. Lucille, why? Aren't you angry anymore? You used to yell and fight with me. I let him hold me, numb inside, just wanting this whole charade to be over. Yell? Fight? 5 years ago, I might have yelled and fought. But now, I'd learned my lesson. What Clifford and I had was gone for good. After my parents died, creditors started showing up one after another. Our businesses were auctioned off, and our house was seized. But a huge amount of debt remained unpaid. Out of options and desperate, I went to Clifford for help. But there, in the house we had originally set up as our future marital home, I saw Melanie. I stared at them in disbelief and demanded to know why Melanie was there. I had spent 2 years decorating that house myself, turning it into our dream home. Lucille, Melanie's health is poor. The doctors said our house is perfect for her recovery. She's just staying here temporarily. Can you stop being so unreasonable? I stood my ground and insisted she leave. But Clifford's secretary threw me out instead. Look at yourself. You're a total loser with nowhere to go, yet you still think you can compete with Ms. Dunlap? Miss Dunlap is the woman Mr. Burnett has loved and cherished since they were kids. When the creditors saw that the Wyatt family had no money left and that the Burnett family was no longer protecting me, they had me thrown in prison for 3 years. I didn't suffer too badly in prison. I just never had enough to eat or warm clothes to wear. I never slept well and I seldom saw the sun. It made me feel like I was less than a rat living in the gutter. What got me through all that hell was regret. Not regret for finding out about Clifford and Melanie's affair, but regret for having met Clifford in the first place. One mistake led to another. I had no one to blame but myself. When I woke up the next morning, Clifford hadn't left for work yet. He was standing by the door, holding his tie. I pretended not to see him, but he called my name. Lucille, will you tie my tie for me? I took the tie from him, repeating to myself, $15,000 a month. I tied a lopsided knot. But he looked delighted and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Lucille, let's start over, just like we were before. I didn't say anything. Clifford took my silence for shyness, tapped my nose gently, and left for work. I ran to the bathroom and scrubbed my forehead over and over with disinfectant wipes. The hospital texted me saying Cecily's condition was stable. My eyes filled with tears. The tension that had been coiled inside me for so long finally lifted. I transferred all the money I'd received so far into the hospital's account. Thank you for everything. If anything comes up, get in touch with me immediately. Lizzie had prepared a lavish breakfast. Everything tasted exactly like it used to, but I had no appetite at all. 3 years in prison had completely ruined my stomach. I could only eat bland foods now. As Lizzie cleared the dishes, she kept singing Clifford's praises. Ms. Wyatt, Mr. Burnett cares deeply about you. He searched for you like a man possessed these past 5 years when you went missing. I've never seen him care this much about any other woman. I swallowed a spoonful of oatmeal slowly. Is that so? What about Melanie? Lizzie fell silent immediately. That's different. Mr. Burnett only sees Ms. Dunlap as a sister. It's nothing like how he feels about you. Lizzie shifted uncomfortably, trying to backtrack but not knowing what to say. I smiled. It's fine, Lizzie. Melanie is like his sister. It's only natural that he takes good care of her. A sudden noise came from the entryway. I looked up and saw that Clifford had come back without me noticing. His deep eyes were fixed on me, his expression unreadable. I forgot my files halfway to the office. I just came back to get them. He came and sat right next to me, then made a move to feed me. He smiled. Remember how you used to have such bad morning grumpiness? You wouldn't eat your oatmeal unless I fed it to you. I cut him off. I'm full. I no longer had the luxury of being spoiled. And the thought made me sick anyway. Clifford's smile froze on his lips. After a long moment, he put down the mug and took my hand. I promised our parents I'd always look after Melanie like a sister. She had a sudden flare-up yesterday, and that's why I came home late. I'll rearrange everything. Let's have a belated Valentine's Day together, okay? Clifford was actually explaining himself to me. I frowned, realizing he had misinterpreted things. It's fine. She's been sickly since she was a kid. It's only right that you look after her. Clifford froze where he sat. Lucille, do you really mean that? Clifford frowned deeply and squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. I pulled my hand away, wincing. Of course. You don't have to explain anything. I understand perfectly. He took a deep breath, as if struggling to control his emotions. Lucille, are you still angry with me? I looked confused. Why should I be angry? Clifford's breathing quickened. Aren't you even jealous? You used to yell and fight with me about this. Clifford, I said, looking at him calmly. When you threw me out at my lowest point, wasn't that exactly what you wanted? To make me know that I couldn't live without you. Clifford's eyes darted away, unable to meet mine. He grabbed his files and practically ran back to his office. I didn't call him out on his lies, nor did I ask if he had been the one who put me in prison. I knew none of it mattered anymore. I needed money, and he could give it to me. That was all that counted. I checked my bank balance on my phone. I was $50,000 short. That was all I needed to pay for every last bit of Cecily's medical expenses. And then, none of this would have anything to do with me ever again. When Clifford came home that evening, I was planting flowers in the garden. He ignored the mud on my hands and insisted that he take me somewhere he was sure I would love. Clifford drove me to the house I had decorated for our wedding 5 years ago. I never got to move into that house because Melanie got there first. It was the place where my love and my marriage met their end. Lucille, look, this is the house you decorated yourself. I've kept it exactly the way you left it all these years, waiting for its rightful owner to come home. I stared at it indifferently. The owner of this house isn't me. It's Melanie. No, it's you. It's always been you. Clifford denied it desperately. Melanie only stayed here temporarily to recover. I made her move out after that, and no one has lived here since. I didn't want to argue with him, and I couldn't bear to look at this place that had caused me so much pain. Clifford suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind. He buried his face in the crook of my neck. His voice came out low and hoarse, with a heavy nasal tone. Warm tears dripped onto my neck, making me feel sticky and disgusted. Lucille, I've loved you all these years. You're the only woman I've ever loved. Lucille, marry me. But he made me sick. Clifford never got an answer from me. The Dunlap family called again, saying Melanie had gone on another hunger strike. She threatened to jump off a building if she didn't see Clifford. Melanie's parents were old when they gave birth to her. They had raised her with the utmost care since she was little. They wouldn't let their own daughter suffer. They immediately called Clifford and ordered him to come over at once. Clifford hung up and headed straight for the door. Lucille, Lainey really can't live without me, so please be understanding. I'll be back soon. Take a look around and see what else our future home still lacks. I'll come back in a bit to bring you home. I said gently, go ahead. Don't worry about me. That so-called house was nothing but a reminder of how stupid I used to be. Its very existence kept me from ever letting my guard down. I told myself to stay sharp, no matter what. The second Clifford left, I hailed a taxi and went to the hospital. Cecily was 5 years old, and she looked excited when she saw me. I stroked her smooth head and pulled a rainbow hat out of my bag for her. Be a good girl, Cecily. Mommy will have the money soon. Once your chemo is done, you can grow your hair long again. And I'll braid it into pretty styles for you every single day. Cecily looked up at me with her big, bright eyes. Really, Mommy? Then we need to do a pinky promise. Her tiny little finger wrapped around mine, and my heart softened. We made a pinky promise, so no backing out. The one who breaks it is a silly goose. Cecily had always been such a sweet, thoughtful child. If it weren't for her illness, she would have had a carefree childhood just like any other kid. The thought made me hold her tighter, my chest aching. All I wanted was to get the money for her treatment as fast as possible. When I looked up, I met a pair of deep eyes, swirling with unspoken emotions. Clifford was standing there, and I had no idea how long he'd been watching. I had no idea why Clifford was at this hospital, or how much he'd heard. I had specifically chosen this hospital to avoid him, making sure it wasn't any of the ones Melanie ever went to. Clifford was about to walk over when Melanie came out of the exam room holding her test results. She buried her face in his chest and sobbed. Clifford looked away from me immediately and rushed to comfort her. I watched them coldly, then picked up Cecily and turned to leave. When Clifford got home that night, I had just gotten out of the shower. He grabbed my hand, his face torn between excitement and restraint. I know about the child. He wouldn't let go of my hand. I asked the doctor. She's 5 years old, and 5 years ago was the year you left. Lucille, you've been through so much raising her alone. I promise I'll give you a huge wedding and bring both of you back to the Burnett's mansion with all the honor you deserve. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Clifford, what makes you think I'd ever marry you after what happened 5 years ago? After my family was destroyed and I was thrown in prison. He stared at me in shock, then lowered his eyes, unable to meet my gaze. My heart sank and turned cold. So he had known everything I'd been through these past 5 years, and he'd just stood by and done nothing. For all I knew, he had even helped make some of it happen, just to keep Melanie happy. I closed my eyes. It wasn't that I was afraid to think about it. I just didn't want to. None of it mattered anymore. Lucille, that's all in the past. I know I was wrong. I wasn't thinking clearly back then. I just wanted you to behave and stop being so jealous. I had no idea you were pregnant. If I had known, I never would have left you alone. He pulled me into a tight hug, his voice breaking. Now that fate has brought you and our daughter back to me, this is my chance to make things right. Lucille, please give me a chance. Let me make it up to you and our daughter, all right? I pressed my fingers to my temple. Clifford, Cece isn't your daughter. Clifford tapped my nose affectionately, completely confident in his assumption. You don't have to lie to me, Lucille. You love me so much. Cece has to be our baby. I looked at him and smiled. 5 years ago, I had cared about no one except Clifford. But now, I felt nothing but disgust for him. I was really pregnant 5 years ago. But Cecily was not my biological daughter. Back then, I had just lost my entire family, been thrown out of the marital home by Clifford and Melanie, and then hounded by creditors until I ended up in prison. The prison authorities bailed me out when they found out I was pregnant. Back then, after all I had gone through, my body was incredibly weak. Maybe the baby didn't want to be a burden to me. It left me quietly one peaceful night. When I woke up the next morning, there was nothing but blood on the sheets. 3 years later, when I finished my sentence and was released, I found Cecily abandoned outside the orphanage gates. She was the same age as my baby would have been. I'd always thought of her as my own daughter. I later found out that she had a congenital blood disorder. Her birth parents had wanted a son, and they didn't want a girl who would only be a burden. That was why they left her at the orphanage. I started working every odd job I could find to save up for her medical bills. Hearing the amusement park was always packed with people, I decided to sell cotton candy there, which everyone really enjoyed. I never expected to run into Clifford there. Clifford started coming home every night after that. Every day, his routine boiled down to just 3 places: home, the office, and the hospital to see Cecily with me. He was trying to prove to me that he would be a good husband and a good father. I felt nothing, but Melanie couldn't stand it anymore. She couldn't get through to Clifford on the phone, and he never replied to her texts. So she started getting the elders of both the Burnett and Dunlap families to pressure him. One day, she'd go on a hunger strike. The next, she'd threaten to jump off a building. And the day after that, she'd say she was going to hang herself. His phone rang again while Clifford was sitting with me, waiting for Cecily's test results. His eyes darted away nervously. I didn't even look up. Just answer it. It might be an emergency. He grabbed his phone with obvious relief and headed for the door. "Don't worry, Lucille. I'll be right back." Cecily's test results came back and they were very promising. The doctor said that after 2 more rounds of treatment, her condition would be fully under control. It couldn't be cured completely, but as long as she kept up with her regular treatments, it wouldn't affect her daily life much at all. The huge weight I'd been carrying on my shoulders finally lifted. In the hospital room, Cecily stared around with her big eyes. She looked a little sad when she didn't see Clifford. "Mommy, where did that gentleman go?" I handed her a peeled apple. "He had to go take care of something." "Do you like him a lot, Cece?" Cecily shook her head. "When he's around, you're not happy. And if you're not happy, I'm not happy. That's why I don't like him." I froze. I never thought a 5-year-old could understand so much. My heart ached for her. I stroked her head. "You don't have to worry about any of that, Cece. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Once you recover, how about we move to that beach town you love so much?" "Where do you think you're going?" Clifford burst through the door, his voice sharp with sudden panic. I glanced at him coolly. "I was just telling Cece that I'll take her on a trip once she's better." Clifford let out a relieved breath and hurried over, setting a takeout bag on the table. "Lucille, I stopped to buy your favorite pot pie from the west side of the city after I finished my errand. That's why I was late. Eat them while they're hot. I'll watch Cece for you." Those pot pies had been our favorite back when we were in school. Back then, I was pampered and demanding, so I would bother Clifford constantly to drive a round trip of dozens of kilometers every day to buy pot pie for me. I'd refuse to eat breakfast if he didn't. In the height of our romance, Clifford was very indulgent with me. Regardless of how tired or overloaded he felt, he still made an effort to satisfy my requests. I would have fooled myself into thinking he'd gotten them just for me if I hadn't just seen Melanie's post. The photo showed Clifford's hand holding the same takeout box. The caption read, "Cliffy heard I had no appetite, so he drove me 30 kilometers just to get pot pie." I'm truly blessed. I stared at the pot pie and lost my appetite completely. "We already ate. You can have them." Clifford's face fell slightly. "All right, I'll leave them here. You can have them later if you want." With Clifford focusing all his attention on Cecily and me, Melanie was naturally left feeling neglected. Finally, after Clifford ignored yet another of her calls, she stormed straight into Cecily's hospital room. She was holding a piece of paper in her hand, and she looked at Clifford with a devastated expression. "Cliffy, she's been lying to you this whole time. This child has no biological relation to you whatsoever. Look, this is your paternity test result." Clifford had been reading Andersen's fairy tales to Cecily. His hand trembled when he heard her words. He didn't even glance at the paper in Melanie's hand. His eyes landed on me. "Lucille, tell me, is Cece my daughter?" I could hear the raw plea in his voice. "Just say yes, and I'll believe you." I looked at him and shook my head. "I told you a long time ago. Cece isn't your daughter." The fairy tale book fell to the floor with a thud. Clifford's eyes turned bloodshot. He grabbed me by the neck with a veiny, shaking hand and slammed me against the wall. Our foreheads pressed together, and I watched tears stream down his face. "Lucille, haven't I been good enough to you? Why? Why are you doing this to me?" I laughed bitterly. "Good enough to me? Is that what you call destroying my entire family, throwing me in prison, and making me wish I was dead?" I stared at him, speaking each word slowly and clearly. "Is this what you call being good to me, Clifford?" The veins in his temples bulged. He punched the wall right next to my ear with all his strength. "Fine, you win." Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I calmed Cecily down and put her to sleep. After that, I went back to the Burnett's mansion to pack my things. I had saved almost enough money. After everything that had happened, there was no point in staying any longer. Halfway through packing, Clifford came home. He reeked of alcohol, and his eyes held a storm of emotions I couldn't decipher. "Lucille, I know everything now. Everything that happened back then." He stumbled toward me, covering his face and sobbing like a helpless child. "I'm sorry. It was all my fault. I never should have doubted you. If our baby had lived, He would be exactly Cece's age, wouldn't he? I'll treat Cece like my own daughter. Let's start over, please. We can have more children together in the future. He reached out to hug me, but I stepped away. Clifford, turning back the clock has never been an option. Do you have any idea how helpless I felt when I lost our baby? It was my first time being a mother, and it was my last. The doctors told me I would never be able to have children again. I stared at him with red-rimmed eyes. For the first time, I let him see the full extent of my hatred. You killed our baby, Clifford, and you took away my right to ever be a mother again. No, that's not true. I had no idea, Lucille. He dropped to his knees and begged for my forgiveness, slapping himself across the face over and over. Just give me one more chance. We can be a happy family, the three of us. Please. Lucille, I'm so sorry. I promise I'll keep my distance from Melanie from now on. No, I'll send her abroad tomorrow. Lucille, do you really want Cece to grow up without a father? Do you want her to be stared at and judged by everyone else? For a moment, I hesitated. Then Clifford locked me up. He publicly announced our wedding date and revealed that he had a daughter. The entire Burnett family was shocked. Melanie told his parents the truth. The Burnett family refused to accept a child who had no blood relation to them. But Clifford was determined to make Cecily a legal heir to the Burnett family. His mother, Roxanne Burnett, was so furious that she collapsed and was admitted to the hospital that night. Lizzie told me all of this. When Clifford locked me up, he took away all my electronic devices. Lizzie was the only one who could bring me news from the outside world. Thankfully, Cecily's condition was under control and improving, so I didn't have to worry about her as much. On the 7th day, Clifford finally came home. He pulled out a velvet box with a proud look on his face. Inside was a huge diamond ring that sparkled brilliantly under the lights. Look, Lucille, this is the diamond ring you loved so much. I tracked down the buyer and bought it back for a fortune. See? We can start over. I let him lead me around like a puppet, completely numb. Clifford took me to a beach where he had set up an elaborate wedding ceremony. He had invited all our family and friends. In the past, I would have cried tears of joy, but now I felt nothing but numbness. Why are you doing this, Clifford? Melanie showed up too. She was visibly pregnant, holding a pregnancy test in her hand. Her eyes were red, and she looked so fragile that a strong wind might knock her over. Cliffy, I'm pregnant. The crowd erupted into whispers and murmurs. Clifford froze in place and turned around, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes like a lost child. I smiled coldly at him. Is this what you call being innocent, Clifford? Is this your idea of a promise? I rushed back to the hospital as fast as I could and checked Cecily out. She was fully recovered and only needed regular follow-up checkups. I bought a ticket for the earliest available flight to Boston, Cecily's favorite city. I got plenty of calls and texts from Clifford during that time, along with messages from his so-called friends begging me to reconcile. I ignored all of them. As soon as I landed, I took out my old SIM card and threw it into the ocean. The waves swept it away instantly, and it disappeared without a trace. Along with it went the painful life I had endured for so many years. Free from that burden, I felt lighthearted for the first time in years. From now on, it would be just Cecily and me, starting fresh. Clifford came to see me more than once, but I never let him in. He looked older and worn down, and he finally realized that stubborn persistence wouldn't work anymore. I heard that Melanie had been throwing constant tantrums ever since she got pregnant, turning the Burnett family upside down. Roxanne had wanted her as her daughter-in-law, but she couldn't stand Melanie's endless drama. In just 2 months, Melanie had driven her to the hospital 7 times. Clifford brought Cecily gifts every time he came. His words had made me realize one thing: I had no right to take away Cecily's chance to have a father. And having a wealthy, powerful father wouldn't hurt her. So I didn't stop them from seeing each other. But I made sure to ignore the loving looks Clifford kept giving me. Then one night, after I'd finished reading Cecily her bedtime story as usual, she suddenly said, "Mommy, let's move across the Atlantic Ocean." I was surprised. Cecily loved the ocean, but she'd always hated the idea of moving to another country. What's wrong, Cece? I thought you liked it here, and you like Clifford too, right? I stroked her hair gently and asked. She thought for a moment. I do like it here, and Clifford is nice to me. But I know you're not happy here, Mommy. I froze. If you're not happy here, then this isn't a nice place at all. I don't like it here anymore either. Eventually, her drowsiness got the better of her. After a few faint mumbles, she fell fast asleep. As I watched her sleeping face, I felt more certain than ever that she was a gift from God. 5 years later, across the Atlantic Ocean, Cecily had grown into a beautiful young woman, and I had built a successful career that I was proud of. When my company hosted a delegation from America, Clifford was among the guests. After the reception, he asked me out for coffee. It had only been 5 years, but his hair had turned gray. It looks like you've been doing well these past few years, he said. I smiled. Once you leave the toxic people and drama behind, you realize how beautiful the world can be. He gave a bitter smile. After all these years, you still hate me that much. I raised an eyebrow. You're wrong. Hate comes from love. All I feel for you is disgust. What about you? Your kid must be in kindergarten by now. Clifford fell silent for a long moment before he spoke. That child isn't mine. Melanie lied to all of us. Her medical treatment abroad was a lie, too. Back then, she was the mistress of a wealthy businessman overseas. She got pregnant, and when his wife found out, she had an abortion and came back to America to lay low. She never cut ties with him, and that baby is his. Oh, congratulations on becoming a father. I glanced at my watch. It was almost time to clock out. Lucille, Clifford called out suddenly, his eyes filled with emotion. Is there any chance for us? Excuse me, I'm here to pick up my beautiful wife. If you have any business with her, you can schedule a meeting during work hours. A strong arm wrapped around my waist. George Harper raised an eyebrow, staring Clifford down triumphantly. I smiled and said nothing. I'm very happy now, Clifford. I wish you the same. On the way home, George kept teasing me. I wish you the same. Since when did you become such a saint? I rolled my eyes and swatted at him, but he caught my hand easily. Your perfume hits me before your hand does, he said, and pressed a soft kiss to my palm. You're mine, Lucille. Don't ever see him again. I might kill him if you do. George knew everything about my past. When I told him, he had gone silent, his face filled with grief and rage. He had wanted to make everyone who had ever hurt me pay dearly. 3 months later, Cecily received a letter that had traveled across the ocean. It informed us that Clifford had died in a fire, and he named Cecily as the sole beneficiary of his trust fund. The news came out of nowhere, but I felt nothing. It was like hearing about the death of a stranger. George crumpled the letter in his fist, his jaw tight with anger. Damn it. The fire beat me to it.